Week 2 featured two games that finished within 2 points, and we leave week 2 with four teams that are 2-0 and four teams that are 0-2. So we'll tell you how we got there here on the week 2 postgame show. We have some analysts standing by to break down all the games in the Rhode Island League, and it sets up, it's funny, I'm going to put one of them on the spot when we start the show. You won't know who, but you might be able to tell by the reaction, because coming into week 2, we thought a little bit, oh, this is going to be interesting. It's kind of like the top teams kind of playing all the, bottom teams kind of from week 1. And we had some close games. And so that's what you want when you got all these teams playing everybody once. You want, it's going to heat up. It's going to heat up. So the week 2 post-game show, no sponsor. So if you want a sponsor, let me know. But shout out to Amp Detailing. Shout out to 110 Grill, who's in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. So shout out to them. Delicious food. I mean, it is really good. And shout out to Ethos, who's been doing a lot of stuff with us in the Mass League, but it isn't too far from Rhode Island, so shout them out here as well. Let's get to the show. We have a lot to talk about between the Skyhawks and load management, especially, as well as the game breakers and rags. But let's get to the actual show, and let's set up one of these analysts on their first time on the show. Yeah. This is the Legacy League. Tell me where your legacy be. Yeah. So rags made it interesting, but it is the game breakers. And load management stormed back. We're going to start with that game because they were down as many as 19 in the second half. And then you look up and it's a tied game with 3 to go. And so you talk about a run. That's going on a run for load management. They weren't able to pull it out. It is the Skyhawks, the Game Breakers, Splash City, and the Halfway Crooks, your 4 2-0 teams as we leave week 2. But let's break down what happened in week 2 here on the postgame show. Aidan, Nick, and Matt standing by. I won't tease it anymore, but coming in, it's like, how do you do the schedule? It's kind of have some of the higher teams, playing some of the lower teams. Like, is that intentional? And the answer is no, but yes, but no. But despite that, week 2 saw some really good games, and we will start with the last game from week 2, actually, where it was the Skyhawks and load management. We just talked about it, but let me kind of give you some more of the game of runs and then how the game ended with the Skyhawks coming out on top. All right, 82-80. We talked about how close of a game it was. We'll do some stats in a second, but load management was up 8 in the first quarter. It was then a 36-11 run for the Skyhawks to go up 47-30. And so they completely flipped the game. Their largest lead was 19, like I talked about in the third quarter. And then it was kind of another 36-point run for load management, a 36-17 run to tie it at 73 with 2 to go. Back and forth, load management had a 1-point lead. The Skyhawks would then have a 1-point lead. And it came down to load management having the ball with 11 seconds left. And Almar never touched it. He actually fouls out in a second. But Nash Carter in his first game had 32 points, and it was Nash Carter trying to go to the hoop. Again, Almar never touches it on that possession, so we'll get to kind of some of that in a second, and I can be the bad guy there. Shout out to Nash Carter in his first game, but we'll talk to some end of game stuff with our first 2 games here on the show. Get stripped. It actually leads to then them having to foul, and it is Almar fouling after Nash Carter loses the ball. That's his 6th foul. Jalen Benson splits the free throws, and then load management takes a timeout. So it's still a 2-point game. They had 2 cracks at it, and it was a deep 3. It's tough in that situation, inbounding at half court with 2 seconds left, knowing you need a bucket. The other team also knows you need a bucket. Wasn't the best shot, I'll say that, and we can kind of get to the analysts here on kind of that last possession, the last 2 or 3 minutes as well. Maybe get it to Nash Carter again, right? I mean, the dude had 32 points and was impressive. But yeah, so the ball goes, I think it was an air ball, and I don't even think it was too close, maybe off the backboard, and it is the Skyhawks who escape. Nick, we'll let you get in. Skyhawks, so it's funny, a game of runs, right? And I'll do some stats after you go, but during that first 36-point run for the Skyhawks, they're loud, they're going crazy. Shout out to Malik Chase, who was the undressed player for load management, who played for them last season. He was kind of coaching. He's like, why, you guys are being quiet now when the game kind of flipped. But it was all Skyhawks in that first half, and load management didn't give up down 19. Nick, what flipped in that game, right? Because it's very easy at that point to kind of, pack it in, not our night. Skyhawks are rolling, and load management did not do that. What flipped?
Nash Carter flipped. I think, in my humble opinion, I think he might be the most complete player in this league. Um, First game I've ever seen him, he has the ball on a string. Like, he was pretty much being double, triple teamed every time they drove to the paint. I mean, load management's identity is pretty clear. You're either going to Nash Carter or Almar. Um, Shout out Matt Buchanan though, he lit it up. The big man, 6 for 8 from three. But I mean, I see the Skyhawks as an all-star team, honestly. Like, you have like 6 to 7 guys on the team that all can put up like 20 to 30, like you said previously, and they all know who they're going to, and these guys are still able to get it done. But basically, Nash Carter just started hitting shots. He has an insane basketball IQ. He got a lot of easy cuts. I think if load management can get some team chemistry down, because I feel like they don't really have an idea of who's the one and who's the two between Nash and Almar. I think if they can figure that out and kind of, take possessions off from each other and flow more easily, they could have easily won. But I mean, they're clearly a very talented roster, as you can see, coming back down 19 and, one shot away, which, by the way, you got to drop a better play than that. That was a terrible last shot. Like basically a half court heave with 2 seconds left. But yeah, all I got to say about this game is load management has a very good shot of going far in the playoffs, in my opinion. And Skyhawks played with a lot of energy, were able to get it done.
Well, at least they got a shot off, right? And we're going to talk about Rags in a second. That was the other 2-point game. Yeah, Nash Carter's first game, right? So that chemistry obviously not there, but will get there as they continue to do that and play together. They're 0-2, and they played Splash City and then the Skyhawks team, right? And so, that's going to, it would take a lot, and it's not over yet, but if that's the 4 or 5 matchup, that's the one you want to avoid, right? Is playing load management in your first playoff game in the quarterfinals. That's not a fun time from what we're seeing from load management. Things can still change because everybody plays everybody, and so there's still 6 games left, but they are 2 games behind the top 4 teams like we talked about coming in. Let's look at the Skyhawks really quick. Eddie Volkerts and Kevin Views with 18 points each, Jalen Benson with 15, Noah James with only 5, and so that's something. And you kind of talk about it, they all were taking their turns. Rich Hall with 8, and Keon Wilbur in his first game with 9. And it's just, they were kind of rotating, they were turning their defense into offense a lot. And so, Matt, you've seen many versions of this Skyhawks team. When they were rolling, it was like, uh-oh, because obviously they were all into it. They were using that defense to get easy runouts. They were able to get stops, and then load management kind of did some of the same things to them, right? And whether it was either team just going cold for a period of time, how much, we could do, whether it's blame pie or the percentage pie, right? Like how much of it was just teams missing for 4 minutes straight versus how much of it was the defense, kind of causing that, and that's always up for debate. But Matt, kind of going with the Skyhawks a little bit here, they do pull it out, right? So despite all of that, despite having a lead, building a lead, no longer having a lead, and in that final 3 minutes, they were kind of going to Eddie Volkerts a lot. One of their many options in his second Legacy Leagues game, he was, I can picture he had a layup that he kind of missed and was right there for the putback. I think that gave him that lead with with 11 seconds left that I talked about, and ultimately gave him the lead for good. But what about the Skyhawks stands out in this version of the Skyhawks, Matt, that gets to 2-0?
I mean, when I think of the Skyhawks, obviously, they won the championship last summer, but, when I think of the Skyhawks, I think of that energy sort of that they brought. What my favorite thing always about the Skyhawks has been everybody plays. There's nobody who sits on the bench for, most of the game. Everyone gets a meaningful shift. And, I thought that was the first time, and it's only been 2 games, but I don't remember this so much for the first game where you saw sort of the bench play a real role. Because, if your second sort of group can go out there and really perform well, that makes a big deal for when sort of the A team, so to speak, goes back out there. And I always felt like the Skyhawks did a good job of, the bench sort of being the 5th player, when that second group is out there. And I felt you had that energy last night more than you did the first game. I just think I want to look at the stat sheet and just say that Noah has been sort of delegating to other people to get more people involved. He didn't have a great shooting night last night, even a couple times. And in the past with the Skyhawks, you've kind of relied on, especially in the later games, even last year in the winter with the Road Dogs, for Noah to provide those daggers in the end. That was definitely true of the finals. Noah made some amazing big shots. I haven't seen that from him so far, this season for the Skyhawks, and they needed that last night. Obviously, they pulled out the win. They had some key performances from some new players, but I think you're missing that. And the other thing is, Q, Dom hasn't been there, and a big part of their game has been sort of giving to the big guy to sort of slam it in. And Eddie Volkerts is a big guy, but I still think they're trying to figure out exactly how best to work everything without having that big centerpiece. He was just such a big part of their identity, especially on defense, and sort of carving out that space in the paint. I think they're trying to, a little bit in a subtle way, trying to figure out, especially sort of Noah, who's a big part of orchestrating things. And I mean, they don't have Omar Rahman, who, this is the first time I've seen them without him. He played a meaningful role in orchestrating things as well. There's a lot of subtle things going on with the Skyhawks that they're still trying to figure things out. And I know I've gone super long, but a lot of good things I saw from them that remind me of the Skyhawks from last season. But they're definitely still trying to figure out a lot of things.
Well, and they don't have that gravitational piece, right? In a Demoy Ennis, who was a lob threat, setting screens, really was, one of the focal points of their offense, it seemed, and was able to make everything a little easier for everybody else. Rebounds was all Skyhawks. Free throws were pretty much even, and three-pointers were even. It was a pretty even game, so it's funny that how it kind of worked out, because it wasn't even, into the third quarter. And yeah, Aidan, so your first time kind of seeing these two teams play anyway. And I told you before week 2, I said, sure, we kind of have that divide right now. Watch out for load management. I do enjoy being correct, right? So I'm obviously going to bring that up because I do think load management is going to try to crash that party of the current top 4 that we have. And they played like one of the 4 best teams in the league. It just depends on which one of them will be out, right? If load management does crack into the top 4. But what stands out in this game to you, Aidan, and you haven't seen too much of these teams. It's a new season. But crazy stretches during the game. What stands out to you, Aidan, from this one in a 2-point game for the Skyhawks?
So in game 1 for load, I wasn't really that impressed. I was kind of like, I want to see a little more. And you kept saying like, oh, watch out for load, watch out for load. And I think I saw that in game 2. Like, they're a really physical team that have a couple players now that could really score and make things close. And yeah, I thought they really had it for a few minutes there at the end, and then they kind of lost it. But I really thought that could have went anyway. Skyhawks, I think they're easily the best team in the league, even though they really haven't been that flashy. They kind of just been grinding these 2 games out, but I do think they have so many players that can really make a difference on the court. They have like 3 or 4 guys that I think could be their best player at any given point. They can make shots, they could drive. Like, everyone seems like they could dunk. Like, everyone really seems dominant, and it's going to be really interesting to see if they could keep up with some of these other teams like Splash City that just makes like 1,000 shots a game.
Well, and so exactly. And so we're going to get to Splash City in a second, who also improved to 2-0. Sometimes the shots don't fall, right? And we've seen it with the Crooks in the past where, and the Crook shot it well in week 2 as well. We'll get to them. Sometimes they just don't fall, right? And so to rely on that sometimes it just isn't your night, right? And if it isn't your night in the playoffs, that's how your season ends, which stinks because you have a great season and then things just don't go your way. But the Skyhawks have a couple different ways to score, and now it looks like load management does as well with some of the players we saw in week 2. Let's get to the other close game Breakers and Rags, another 2-point game, and I teased kind of the final possession in a second. But let's talk about that one and how the Game Breakers narrowly got the win. One of those coming in just based on the week one talent that we saw, kind of the week one performances that we saw. You might have, if there was a spread, game breakers by 10, game breakers by 12, right? I think that would have been a fair line coming in based on just some of the talent on each of these teams. Well, it was a 2-point game, and sure, the game breakers started with only 3 players. Rags only had a 6-point lead after the first quarter. I believe they kind of had their 4th and 5th players show up and kind of get in the game. End of the first, start of the second. And that's when the game breakers kind of flipped the game and had a lead. And Rags wouldn't go away. And so we definitely have to start with a Charles Perry, 8 of 17 from 3. He made a couple big ones early and then even bigger ones late as we kind of get into some of that fourth quarter talk between these two teams. But Charles Perry was huge. Josh Perry doing his thing with 20 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. So doing a little bit of everything. Gian Avedijan with 31. Mitchell Nareska, one of those names we're going to talk about a lot. 25 points and 20 rebounds. He's one of those rebounders, right, that you're going to have to mark as a team playing the game breakers. That's for sure, because 20 rebounds is just deadly for any one player. But we get to the end of the game, and like we talked about, back and forth, Gian would hit a 3 in the fourth quarter. Charles Perry would come back and hit a 3. And so really just a close game again in the fourth quarter. And it was like, oh boy, is Rags going to do it? And so we kind of get down to the end. Like I said, super close throughout. Rags had the ball in the final, 10, 8, 7 seconds. And they kind of took their time a little bit. And so we'll get to that in a second. It was Charles Perry on the inbounds. They get it to Josh Perry. He drives and gets stripped by Hachi when they're down by 2, and the game breakers just are able to kind of run it out and never even have to make those 2 free throws. And so sure, timeouts are always a thing, because if you're down 3 with 1 second left, inbounding the ball at the other end of the court, I don't like your chances there either, right? But it's better than kind of what happened, where they didn't even get a shot up down by 2, didn't give themselves a chance for a rebound, which they were rebounding in this game. Shout out to Kyle Secator, Clarence Brown for sure. The stats may not even reflect it, but I can picture, and Josh Perry had 9, Charles Perry had 7 rebounds, but timely rebounds where they were able to kind of make some way down low and keep things close. Never gave themselves a chance, and it's just being in those situations, right? Rags, I think this is their 3rd or 4th season. Like, what's the plan, right? Like, let's go quick. Let's get it to a Josh Perry. Let's get it to, we talked about it, for load management. Let's get it to Almar and let him create something, right? Let's get it to a Nash Carter and let him create and live with the results. But, Josh was kind of in a tough spot, and Hachi Amini made a great play. He's a good defender in this league and made a great play. Didn't even get a shot up. So I'll do more stats in a second. Matt, game breakers pull it out, and so you kind of have some of the background on this too. I mean, Rags has been kind of an up and down team. They added a new guy who was able to throw some weight around in a Nelvin Blanco, who was like, all right, like we can kind of see kind of what's going on here with some of the pieces on this team. Only 8 points in his debut, but was noticeable with some of his size in this game. Matt, the game breakers, they can try to. It wasn't even an excuse, because they had a full team enough of the game, and Rags was still able to hang around. How?
Sometimes in legacy leagues, especially, like a stat that you can't really record, but plays a big difference is attendance. And I mean, look, like, because I know Gianna's probably listening, but like, if every single game, it's like after the first quarter, like, bus driver Phil Critchlow shows up with like half the team. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. And look, like, if I was drafting the Legacy League world and I had to pick someone to like build a team around, to set a culture, to set a feel for a team, just an atmosphere, Gian would be top of the list of someone you pick on, just to have like a team that people want to come to and play to. And I mean, with, Mitchell Naresco in the center, I mean, could you ask for a better person to be setting the paint? I mean, he gave Josh Perry hell. Like, Josh Perry's so good at going in and finding a way to put the ball in the basket. And, Mitchell makes it almost impossible, which is just what he can do on either end in that space. Like, I don't think I've seen anyone more dominant. But those 2 pieces alone, you have just a fantastic basis for a team. But if people aren't showing up, that's your Achilles heel. And we saw that, Gian has experienced that a little bit with like Lob City. They had some sort of attendance stuff that I saw over the last few years. that's their Achilles heel because it's not talent. And I think Rags, they could smell it. Like I've never seen, Chris Perry play with that kind of fire just in his soul.
Charles,
Oh,
he made enough threes. We got to get his name right. It's okay, Charles. Yeah, but he was lighting it up
what did
like
I
you
say,
said.
Chris?
Yeah, it's all right. It's on your
Sorry,
head.
Charles.
It's on your mind.
I was putting you up there, but no, best game I've ever seen Charles Perry play. Just across the board statistically, shot awesome. He was kind of the heart and soul of that team, and a lot of the times they look for the fire. I think from Josh Perry, but no, Charles Perry was the driving force in that game, and I just think a lot of guys. Devontae Davis was getting all over the place. He got a bunch of steals in that game. Just guys, they could smell. This is their chance. This is our chance to get a big win here for us. Couldn't quite pull it out in the end, but it was a lot of it was I think what I said. I think guys didn't show up on time.
Well, you know what they say: the best ability is availability, right? And so Aiden got it. Yeah, and it's Rags had one of those games where I'd almost and Charles Perry made enough threes. When you get to that last possession, you almost want him just to shoot one. Down by 2, I don't even care. Like he had that good of a game where I'd be okay. Like, let's live and die. Like that's our chance to take a lead and win it. Right. And he's made, what did I say? 8, right? A whole bunch. And so, I'd rather that 18th attempt by him from 3 be to win the game. I think that, would have been an okay result, especially because there would have been time left. He would have been able to foul, and free throws are so weird because the depth perception's off and it's the same distance, but the rim is lower. Make him make 2 free throws. Right, at least like make them kind of finish out the game. Unlike what happened, Aiden, Rags gave it a run, and it was fun down the stretch too. Like the entire fourth quarter, you were like, all right, the game breakers might put together a couple plays in a row, and kind of get a lead to 8 or 10. They never could. I guess the story is Rags, but even the game breakers, I mean, they took those punches and responded, right? And so kind of what in that fourth quarter stands out to you?
I think the game breakers actually probably looked the best in the fourth quarter because they were really, really bad from three for most of the game. I mean, they were 28% from three. Like for someone like Gian who just shoots a million threes and usually makes them all, like that's pretty shocking. But in those last few moments, you saw Gian heating up. I think he made 2 or 3 threes just in the last 5 minutes, and they just if you can't leave them open in the last few minutes like that. And Rags kind of got punished, even though they kind of had a lead and then lost it. But yeah, I think that was the story of the fourth quarter there.
And Nick, it was just a close game, and even some of the stats resemble that, right? So the field goal attempts are pretty much the same, so nobody really, had that many more opportunities. Free throws are about even, 8 made threes for the game breakers and 12, Charles Perry made 8 by himself, but 12 for Rags, and so you can always look at kind of 3-point shooting sometimes, but, what stands out to you, and really, what was the key or the difference for the game breakers, Nick, in this game? Because it was back and forth, and sure, it's always a couple plays, right? You make a shot and the other team doesn't, and that's how you're able to get the win. But what was the key for the game breakers, for you, Nick?
I think the key for the game breakers here was just the utter confidence. Just reading body languages the whole game, you can kind of tell they never were really scared they were going to lose. Even when they were down a lot, Gian was still talking like, "Oh, we have 3 players." Like he was pretty much just saying like, "Yeah, like we're gonna win this game regardless of what the score is right now." And I feel like the Rags kind of bought into that a little bit. I feel like they kind of like lost their spark once that 4th player came. Like we just lost our chance. And honestly, I mean, it's pretty disappointing for the Rags. Like you play against 3 people. And they're shooting terrible from 3. Like Aiden said, 8 for 28%. And you have a full team. I feel like when you're 3v4, they were playing a little too passive. Like, oh, let's get the best shot. Like, you just got to go. And honestly, outside of Charles Perry, played a great game, of course. 4 for 17 from 3. Like, you really can't have that. And, I mean, the other team's already playing with a disadvantage. And they're shooting bad. And you can't get it done. But I feel like the biggest key was just the utter confidence from the game breakers that they were really never scared of losing.
Well, body language is a great. It's funny. You can sometimes tell, like, oh yeah, this team's going to lose, and I don't mean that in this game because it was close to the end. But sometimes you can tell when a team's spirit gets broken by their body language, right? Like, and it didn't happen to load management either, right? They were down 19, and they weren't looking that way either. So it's funny how in this game, one team was still very confident. They only played with 3 guys for a quarter and a little. I think we've had teams play with 3 guys the entire game and sometimes win. And so go figure that one. 3 humans on 4 humans, and the team with less people wins sometimes. So it wasn't the full game, but yes. And Rags was able to build a lead a little bit, but not enough clearly. But yeah, when it was even, they were hanging with them. We can do these next 2 a little more quickly. And so you may only get 2 of you guys on these, but it is Splash City. Listen, new team name, they haven't lost yet, so I know that they're not going back to the team name that should not be mentioned. But Splash City improves to 2-0. 96-68. I wonder how much they scored in week 1. 89. So they're up in the 90s. Their offense is humming, and they 10 of 25 from 3. Nearly 56% shooting from the floor. And this one, they kind of blew it open early, 26-10 through the first quarter. They added 8 points to that lead, so it was up by more than 20 at halftime, and then kind of cruised. Shaq Colombo with 23 led the way, 23 and 12. Another good game from him, and he's kind of been their leader. Steve Simone, 5 of 8 from 3. So there you go, 63% after a good shooting performance in week 1. Chris Vincenzo with 18 and 13, a double-double. So there you go. And Kevin Veter getting into the scoring column, which he did a lot of last time we saw him. So a lot of scoring from him. Quickly for velocity, Francisco Lopez, 36. So I know he had 40 in week 1 and 36 in week 2. That makes the math easy. He's averaging 38 points a game, in his first 2 games and is shooting at a high percentage. So it's just who else around him when they play some of these teams that they might match up better with can score with him to keep this velocity team in it on the offensive end. Aidan, especially you not being here last week, what has stood out, even from the first 2 games, from this game, but what has stood out about Splash City? You can Shaq Cologne, shooting, size. I mean, they've done a little bit of everything, but what has stood out to you about Splash City through 2 games?
For me, it's both Shaq and Steve, who seem like they are just the 2 best 3-point shooters in the league by far. And was it Steve?
Yes, I'm making fun about your best 3-point shooter comment. We'll get there. It's okay. Go ahead.
I personally, like, just 3-point shooting, I think it's them too. I mean, you leave them open, they're making it every time. Like, they do not miss. And maybe more in game 1, but like both games, their offenses seem like they can't be stopped, and teams just can't keep up with them, especially Velocity. Velocity Francisco was amazing, and he is like the sole reason why this game was like sort of interesting at times, but they just were falling behind the entire time. They were getting tired, and guys just were missing shots left and right. But Splash City constantly making shots, can dunk too, a little bit of everything, and yeah, they're really, really interesting team going forward.
You got the 2 of you, Aidan and Nick. Nick's talking about, during the first game, who did you say that Nash Carter's the best player in the league? You're crazy. After 1 game. And then we got Aidan calling out the best shooter. All right, it's all good. What'd you say?
I know ball.
Okay. Listen, it's true. That's fine. I give you that. 2 games is different than a longer time. But yes, they've been shooting it well through 2 games. Splash City has. We'll go to Nick in a second, and I'll save Matt for the Halfway Crooks and what might be his last show. I think it's only fitting that he gets to talk about my team. But I'll school you on the 3-point shooting stuff later. I prefer shooters who have done it over seasons, right? Where Steve Simone and Shaq Cologne are newbies in this. But through 2 games, all jokes aside. Doesn't matter who's the best. These 2 games, Splash City has made a ton of threes, and that has opened up their offense, right, Nick? I mean, anytime a team is shooting that well where you have that many threats, it helps. And it's going to be interesting, not to discredit what they've done because they beat load management, and it took all of the threes they made, and then obviously against what is looking like a lesser velocity team, they didn't let up. They didn't, take a night off from 3. And so against some of the other teams that they're going to face, when those threes are maybe a little more high pressure and contested like they were in week one. Respect, right? But they, not so much tonight, and it's just different. And we'll see, how it stands up for them. But you talk about Splash City, Nick, and I guess is 3-point shooting the key to their offense? I mean, and kind of stylistically what you've seen from them, like, and the reason I ask it that way, and then I'll actually let Nick talk. Like, if they were missing, let's say they weren't shooting, like there was, flames coming out of their butt the first 2 games, right, from 3, they probably still would have won in week 2. How does that change their offense if they're not, flame throwing from 3, right? Like, what other options does Splash City have, and what have they shown you, Nick, through 2 games?
I do think their identity is definitely chucking threes. It was pretty evident the first 2 games, even against a weaker team like Velocity. They still were taking a lot of threes outside of the obvious fast break layups that they got a million of. Yeah, they were shooting a lot. I mean, hey, if you're gonna live and die by the 3, at least you're shooting well. But say hypothetically they're not shooting lights out, I do think they would run into some problems. I haven't seen very amazing rim penetration by anyone. I think they can drive and kick very well, but if the 3 isn't falling, I don't know if they have a really strong identity in the paint. But I've also only seen them for 2 games. I think they have a very good identity of just shooting because their guards, shout out Kevin Veter, he went to the same high school as me, shout out Johnson. And he's really quick. He's able to get to the rim and kick out. I honestly don't think they should change anything they're doing. I think living and dying by the 3 will work out for them, especially when you have Shaq and Steve shooting so lights out. So I think they're doing fine. Also, want to note this. I think Lucas Rich is a very good basketball player. If he's hearing this, I hope you play with a little bit more confidence because I know you can shoot. I know you can attack. You could easily be a 20-point per game scorer. Shout out Lucas Rich.
Yeah, I'm trying to do some math because Splash City is 26 of 60 through their first 2 games, and that's like 44%. And so that's high, even just to keep for an entire season. Sure, the season is 8 games, where like we've seen NBA or college teams do that for an 8 or 10 game stretch. We're not college players or professional basketball players, so we'll see if they can keep that up. That's a little high. They'll probably come back down at some point, but they have a Chris Vincenzo, right, who, just like you said about Kevin Veter, can really get in the paint and get layups, which we've seen in the past. So they have that option. They still haven't worked out and haven't needed as much. And even a Shaq Colombo, when the 3s aren't falling, he's not going to keep taking them. We've seen that before, where he will attack, he will set up closer to the basket, kind of get more in that mid-range and take advantage of all the different skills he has. So shout out Splash City. This is good. And next week, we haven't done too much previewing, but next week it is Splash City and the Skyhawks kicking off week 3. It's going to be a great game. A lot of good games next week. Game breakers and Providence defense will be frisky. Load management and Rags, can they keep that up? And so we'll kind of see some of these matchups as these teams keep playing, everybody. But Splash City and Skyhawks will be a good one. Let's get to the last game. We'll start with Matt, but it is the Halfway Crooks led by Isaac Lane again, and they take care of Providence defense without their big man. 89-74. It was a 20-point lead in that fourth quarter at times and kind of stuck around there, which is how we like it for the Halfway Crooks. Isaac Lane with 38. He did miss a shot tonight, guys. Just he's human, just so we get that out there. 14 of 24, but still played really well. 9 rebounds. Did a little bit of everything. Jared Hansen, a 6 or 7-time three-point contest champion to you, Aidan. 16 points and 4 of 6 from 3. And Brandon Whitman, 15 points, and is looking more like the Brandon Whitman we remember from a couple summers ago with the Gym Rats. Matt, the Halfway Crooks roll. We'll do a little more on Providence defense in a second, but this is your chance, Matt. You've had a lot of these opportunities. What's your favorite part about this Halfway Crooks team? A great question, by the way. One of my favorite questions of the show, obviously. But what stands out and what's been your favorite part about this team that's 2-0 and is in the conversation, right? Is one of the top teams in the league so far this season?
No, I don't see anything to add from what I said last week. The Pompadour's here. Isaac Lane's awesome, and I think this iteration of the halfway crooks is the best I've seen. And Providence defense, they had 3 guys who shot 20 points. That's something to build on. I don't have much to say other than that.
Yeah, for Providence defense, Tremel Bailey with 24 and 5 threes. Khalil Pena, 22 points, and he was a little hotter in week 1 and cooled off a little bit in week 2. Jeffrey Sims kind of doing a lot down low, 20 points for him and 7 rebounds. And so, yeah, definitely stuff to build on for Providence defense. And like we said, next week, they will take on the Game Breakers, who knows who they're going to have, right? And so that's an opportunity for Providence defense to kind of play that rags role that we saw, and make it interesting. They're athletic. If they're hitting shots, Providence defense, that's where you want to be. And they were a little shorthanded in week 2 as well. And so that matters, right? Getting tired versus a team that has some subs. We'll go back to Aidan. He said he had notes on all the games, so we're gonna make him use the notes. I'd love to hear what you think about the halfway crooks, but another great game from Isaac Lane. You've seen 2 of those great ones. 12 of 26 from 3 for the Crooks. That's right around like that Splash City number, right? 46% in week 2 only. Splash City has done it for 2 games. I got that, but still, the Crooks are making threes. Then you add in Isaac Lane, doing a little bit of everything. Tough to stop Aidan, for the halfway crooks as they look to continue to roll.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it simple. When I'm looking for good photos, I look to see where Isaac is, and he always gives me something good. I think he's by far the best player in the league. No one can stop him.
Ah,
Like, he scores 700 every single time he's on the court for either team. I've had the pleasure of watching him 4 times because he plays in Mass too. So it doesn't seem like anyone could stop him either. He can drive. He could dunk over any single person in the league. He could hit threes. Like, he gets rebounds. He is the definition of an all-around player. But they have so many other good players too. It's just he's the one that happens to get the ball every single time, and he always puts it where it needs to be. Thought Providence defense was okay for the most part. They had a few guys play pretty well, but they just had real trouble guarding Isaac. They just couldn't really keep up defensively, at least.
yeah, was a mismatch. Nick, you want to add anything quick? I know we weren't going to do this, but it is the halfway crooks, and this doesn't happen often. So yeah, do you want to maybe back off a little bit on your best player in the league after 1 game for Nash Carter? He's good. This is not what this is about. Yeah, go ahead. What do you think?
From a pure hooper standpoint, I think he's the best. Maybe on the lowered rims, it's not like it doesn't fit his identity as much as an Isaac Lane, because Isaac Lane can like hop, step, dunk from the free throw line, so I'm not going to take that away from him. But I will say Isaac Lane's in a better situation, so that also plays into a factor. But I think he's averaging like 44 points per game this season, so he can be my number 2. I'm gonna stay on my hot take. It makes better entertainment, so I'm gonna stay with that. Yeah. Honestly, I don't really have to say much. This is a pretty dominant win. Honestly, it shows more than the score. I feel like it was more of a, if you watch the game, it was probably a bigger gap than 15 if you were just not looking at the score. It seemed pretty one-sided, and yeah, good team win for halfway crooks.
Agreed. That's a good spot to leave it. I prefer my best players to win, and so someone on a 2-0 team over someone on an 0-2 team, just saying. And I prefer my best players to have titles, so I will take, not that anyone asked, but I'll take some Noah James at times. He's been the best player in this league, and you guys may not believe it, but yes. And so low rims, high rims, doesn't matter. What's that saying? The Shannon Sharp, Lakers in 5. Like, I don't care. I'll take anybody. But yeah, we'll see. And that's why it is a long season, and it's for someone like Nash Carter, and people on new teams have this as well. But as the season goes on, it's funny how much things change, sometimes for the better, right? They get more used to their situation, more used to their teammates, more used to the rims, more used to the style and the pace, because that's a huge thing. Forget the rims. Like, it's just faster, right? And there's a lot more opportunities at a faster pace, which is a little different. But yeah, I'm sure everyone will adjust fine. because good basketball players tend to adjust no matter what's going on. As I talked about, in week 3, Skyhawks Splash City will be the premium matchup. Because we did go a little more quickly, here's what we're going to do. You guys are going to pick a winner, and then we're going to do our finals picks as well, and it'll be kind of quick. So we'll do one-word game for this because it is a week 3 matchup, and I'll let you guys kind of explain your finals pick a little more. So we'll go around, pick your winner just for Splash City Skyhawks, and then your one word that explains why you picked who you picked. All right, this is completely out of nowhere, so we'll let Aidan go last so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. But it's literally you say the team and then one word, right? That's going to explain why you picked that team. It saves us on some time. So, Matt, your winner for Skyhawk Splash City in week 3 and your one word why. And he's muted. All right, let's try it again.
Skyhawks and rotations.
Okay. Yep. Nick, who you got in your one word?
Pains me to say, but Skyhawks energy.
Okay. Aidan?
Skyhawks culture.
All right. It's a clean sweep for the Skyhawks. That's how this should go. After, 12 and a half minutes of saying Splash City, has the best shooters in the league. At least maybe the best shooters in the league are going to cool off a little bit against the Skyhawks. We'll see. I hope Noah James hears this and goes, you know what? Because he's the other. There's only so many of us. I think this is still actually true. That have won. We're going to do this now in week 2. There's only 2 teams that have ever won, and I'm just confirming this. Yeah, this is hilarious. There's only 2 teams that have ever won a 3-point contest and 3 players in 12 seasons that have won a 3-point contest in Rhode Island. Can you guess? Matt knows who they are. Nick, can you guess who they are? Matt doesn't know? Oh, wow. Yeah, only 3 players
I think
ever.
I can name 2.
Okay, go ahead.
Noah James and Jared Hansen.
Okay.
And
yes, so
the
they
other one, I'm
account
drawing a
for...
question mark.
They account for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the 10 3-point contests we have done. That means Jared has 6. Noah has 3. And there is one other halfway crook who has 1.
Joey Zocco.
You.
Thank you. That's all I wanted. All right. So that's right. The halfway crooks have the best shooters in the league, and that's a fact. All right. Let's do some finals picks. So like we talked about, it's always fun to throw that in, but we do have our records on the league records page for every website. You can see all the dunk contest champions. You can see all the all first team players ever. It's something. The page is growing because of how long we've been doing this. As we talked about, 4 2-0 teams enter week 3. 2 of them play. We just talked about it, so one of them will lose at least. But we'll go around. We'll start with Matt again. I did warn the guys about this one. So make a finals pick right now. I realize it's June 10th, right? We are 2 games in out of 8, and then we have the playoffs, and so things can always change. But which 2 teams, and it could be a team that doesn't have a win yet. That's, it could be any 2 teams. Do you expect to see in the finals? And then who do you think will win it in like 1 or 2 sentences? All right. Not a word, but also like we're going to keep this moving. So Matt, who's your finals right now and which team do you have winning it?
I'm really caught between load management, Skyhawks, and halfway crooks. I want to say that it'll be halfway crooks and Skyhawks, and the Skyhawks will win.
Okay. Why? Give me 1 sentence. What's the reason right now?
I just believe in Skyhawk culture, and I think Noah James is going to put it together, and Noah James is going to have the daggers just like he had in the winter finals.
We got to make
That was-
T-shirts like.
I was down on the Road Dogs in the winter finals, and Noah James just was ice.
Mm-hmm. In the semis and in the finals, right? Just like massive shots in the final minutes to lift his team. Yep. I was gonna say we have to make T-shirts like Heat culture. What do we got? Skyhawk culture now. We're gonna brand it for the podcast.
But if you can add one more thing, I just think the Skyhawks have the best understanding of how Legacy Leagues works. The way they handle the rotations, both on the court and on the bench, I've never seen anyone do it better.
Fair. All right. Nick, your finals right now, your winner, and then a little explanation why.
I'm also torn between the top three that Matt mentioned, actually. Between the Skyhawks, load management, and halfway crooks. But I'm going to go Skyhawks and load management.
Okay.
It's hard because I think halfway crooks, if they do lose in the playoffs, it'll be by less than like 5. They're just very tenacious. I think I said that right.
Yeah.
They're very aggressive. It's how you win basketball games. But I don't know. I can just see a little Cinderella run by load management, and I think they're gonna win it all.
Well, and they have the best player in the league, so that helps, right?
Yeah.
I'm
back and I'm double down.
Aidan, all right. Your top 2 teams. Wait, all right, so Nick picked load right after all that. So it was load management over Skyhawks. Matt had Skyhawks over Crooks. Right? All right, I'll take it. All right, Aidan, your 2 teams and why, and then who's winning too.
If I'm between 3 as well. Crooks, Skyhawks, and Game Breakers. I want to pick Game Breakers so badly, but if people can't show up, Gio is plays so much. I don't think Gio stepped out he obviously didn't step out for a single second. I don't know if he stepped out a single second in the first game.
Well, and so I'm gonna put you on the spot. You can and anytime we do a show like this, any team could have someone not show up, right? And so if this changes your mind, assume every team has everybody. It's kind of the only way we can do this type of stuff, right? And so sure, we're going to see potentially a pattern by the time the playoffs start, but in week 2, do it as if every team is at full strength, Aidan. Go ahead.
Okay. Full strength. Crooks and Game Breakers. I think them 2 both have the most dynamic players that could take over games. Gio, I think, is probably my second favorite player in the league. I think he could take over a game at any point. But I'll take the Crooks to win it all because they have the best player in the league and because he has been so dominant in every single minute of every single game. And I just don't see a world where Isaac can be stopped and where he doesn't play like he's the best. And I think they have so many supporting guys too that could sub in. Even if Isaac has a slightly worse game, I think they have some other guys that might eventually step up.
Well, yeah, I was thinking if you guys know my saying, and we'll know it by now. If you don't miss, you'll win. Just as a team, like if you don't miss, you're going to win every game. And so obviously, teams always miss shots. Isaac did not miss literally in week 1, right? And so it's haven't seen that 21-21. That's something. Something for sure. All right, so that was a halfway crooks over Game Breakers. Wow, what a show! What a way to end the show. Week 2 post-game show. Good job, guys. We made some picks, and I am sure that's Aidan. In case you want to talk to him next week, that's Nick, who thinks Nash Carter's the best player in the league. That's Matt. Matt. You're not going to see him again. But the other 2, as it happens, a couple weeks in, everyone gets a little more comfortable. Players will nicely come up to you, and Gian especially. Isaac most likely will as well and be like, I heard you, kind of not. So just get ready. This is what happens. It's all in good fun, but this is Aidan. For any players that want to go, maybe. What's that?
I said, yeah, come on up.
Oh yeah. Aidan, this is Nick, right? And all of our other analysts as well. We got to get a couple of other ones on the show to kind of let them, set themselves up for some interesting takes. But that's what happens, right? 2 games in and things change throughout the season. But good week 2 post-game show. Matt, Nick, and Aidan. I'm Joey. Stay tuned. Top plays are good this week. We had some good highlights, some close games. Sometimes you don't always get, the crazy highlights when the games are close because the teams are trying to win, right? They're a little more focused on something else. But we did have some good highlights this week. The power rankings are interesting. We got those coming up as well. So those will be posted shortly by the time you're seeing this. And week 3 kicks off with a great game. Skyhawks and Splash City. I'm in. If Splash City makes enough threes, they can stick in any game, right? We just said it. That kind of sums up the show. And so we'll see what they do in week 3. And we'll be back after week 3 with another post-game show for you. But that's a wrap for week 2. Enjoy the week, and we'll see you next Tuesday at the Oakland Beach Boys and Girls Club. Thanks for watching.